Imagine two people, same age, same level of ambition, same drive to build a good life. One of them picks a career in accounting, works hard for 20 years, and retires comfortably. The other one picks a specific job in a specific industry in Australia. And within 10 years, they're earning over $300,000 a year, living in a house with a view, driving whatever they want, and retiring early. Same country, same economy. Completely different financial outcomes. Now, here's the question that most people never stop to ask: why? Not just what are the jobs, because you can Google that in 30 seconds, but why does Australia specifically pay certain people so dramatically more than others? What is it about this country, this economy, this geography, that creates these extraordinary salary gaps? And once you understand the reasons, you'll start to see the patterns. You'll be able to look at any industry, any role, and instantly know whether it has the potential to pay exceptionally well. That's exactly what this video is going to break down. And I promise you, by the end, you're going to see the Australian job market in a completely different way. Let's start at the very beginning. Australia is the 6th largest country in the world by land area. It is roughly the same size as the continental United States. But here is where things get interesting. Its entire population is just over 26 million people. To put that in perspective, the Greater Tokyo metropolitan area alone holds more people than the entire continent of Australia. The country is massive, the workforce is comparatively small. That single geographic reality shapes everything that follows. And it is the first foundational reason why certain jobs in Australia pay exceptionally well. When you have a vast, resource-rich country with a relatively small population to manage it, run it, build it, and keep it healthy, the economics of labor shift dramatically. There are not enough workers to go around. And when demand for skilled workers outpaces the supply of people who have those skills, wages go up. That is not a theory. That is basic economics playing out in the real world every single day in the Australian labor market. The Australian Bureau of Statistics confirmed that as of late 2024, the average full-time worker in Australia earns around 100,000 Australian dollars annually. That is already one of the highest average wages in the world. But when you zoom into specific sectors, specific roles, specific locations within Australia, those numbers climb into entirely different territory. So let's zoom in. The first industry we need to talk about is mining, and specifically, what is happening in Western Australia. Western Australia sits on some of the most mineral-rich land on the planet. Iron ore, gold, lithium, nickel, natural gas. The ground there is effectively a treasure chest. Australia is one of the world's top exporters of iron ore and lithium, two materials that are absolutely critical to global manufacturing and the growing battery industry. Here is the thing about mining. It is what economists call capital intensive. That means the companies operating these mines have invested billions of dollars in infrastructure, equipment, and logistics before a single worker ever clocks on. When those machines are running, they are generating enormous value. When they stop, whether due to a breakdown, an accident, or a shortage of skilled operators, the cost is catastrophic. According to research cited by the University of Sydney's workplace expert John Buchanan, mining is so capital intensive that paying workers extremely well barely dents the overall cost structure of these operations. The value generated by each individual worker, because they're operating machinery worth millions of dollars, is disproportionately high. That makes high wages not just possible, but rational from a business perspective. The numbers reflect this. Jumbo operators in Western Australia, the people who operate massive drilling machines deep underground, can earn in excess of $330,000 a year. Skilled mining equipment operators are among the highest paid tradespeople anywhere in the country, and they do not necessarily hold university degrees. What they hold are specialized technical certifications, demonstrated experience, and a willingness to work in demanding, remote, and often physically challenging conditions. The remote factor matters more than people realize. Many of these mine sites are hours from the nearest major city. Workers fly in for extended shifts, sometimes 7 days on, 7 days off, and live in accommodation provided by the mining company. They are away from family, they are working in heat, dust, and physically taxing conditions. The premium in their pay packet is partly compensation for those sacrifices, and partly a reflection of how hard it is for companies to find qualified people willing to make them. That combination, high value generated capital intensive operations, remote conditions, and limited workforce supply, creates the salary environment that makes Australian mining one of the most financially rewarding blue-collar industries in the world. Now let's move from the ground to the hospital. Medical specialists in Australia are, by almost every measure, the highest earners in the country. The Australian Taxation Office has compiled data from millions of tax returns. The findings are consistent. Neurosurgeons earn the highest average taxable income in Australia, with figures exceeding $600,000 annually. Anesthetists, surgeons, dermatologists, and psychiatrists are not far behind. Why does Australia pay its medical specialists so well? The answer has multiple layers. The first is training. To become a specialist in Australia, you do not just graduate from medical school. You complete an undergraduate degree, then a medical degree, then years of internship and residency, then a highly competitive specialty training program that can take another 5 to 8 years. By the time a neurosurgeon is fully qualified and operating independently, they may have spent 15 or more years in education and supervised training. The financial commitment, the time sacrifice, and the mental pressure of that journey are enormous. But training alone does not explain the salary. After all, many professions require long training, and they do not all earn $600,000 a year. The second layer is consequence. When a surgeon operates on a brain, there's no margin for error. The stakes are not inconvenience, they are life and death. Society and the healthcare system places a premium on people who can perform under that level of responsibility consistently day after day. The pay reflects both the scarcity of those people and the weight of what they are trusted to do. The third layer is the supply shortage, and this one is critical. Australia, like many developed nations, is dealing with an aging population. More people are living longer, which means more demand for healthcare. At the same time, producing a medical specialist takes over a decade. You cannot simply turn on a tap of new surgeons to meet sudden demand spikes. The pipeline is long and the capacity limited. When demand rises faster than supply can adjust, wages rise, jobs and skills. Australia's official data lists general practitioners, nurses, and aged care workers among the top occupations experiencing persistent shortages. The healthcare system is under consistent pressure, and the financial rewards at the specialist end of the market reflect that pressure acutely. There is also the matter of geography within Australia. Medical professionals who work in regional, rural, or remote areas are offered additional financial incentives, because convincing a specialist to relocate from Sydney to a rural town is genuinely difficult. The government and health services have implemented various incentive schemes, salary top-ups, and bonuses to attract talent to underserved areas. So the same qualification, worn in a different postcode, can mean a substantially different salary. Let's talk about technology. Australia's tech sector has gone through a significant transformation over the past decade. What was once a market heavily dependent on importing international talent has become a competitive domestic landscape where experienced software engineers, cybersecurity specialists, data scientists, and cloud architects are being fought over by employers. Software engineers in Australia earn an average of around $129,000 per year. Cybersecurity directors and senior architects push well beyond that. And this is not a story of any single company or city. It is a national trend driven by structural forces. The first force is Australia's digital transformation. Government agencies, banks, mining companies, healthcare systems, and retail businesses have all dramatically accelerated their investment in technology infrastructure. The Australian government itself has invested heavily in digital services and cybersecurity. Every organization that digitizes needs people to build, maintain, and secure what they build. The second force is the global competition for the same talent pool. Australia is not competing in isolation. A talented software architect in Sydney is, in the modern world, just one Zoom call away from a job offer in Singapore, London, or San Francisco. Australian employers know this. They understand that if they are not competitive on salary, they will lose their best people to international markets. That global awareness pushes local salaries up. The third force is the specific skill shortage in high-stakes areas. Cybersecurity is a perfect example. The threats facing organizations, ransomware, data breaches, system intrusions, have grown substantially in sophistication and frequency. The number of qualified cybersecurity professionals capable of managing those threats at an enterprise level has not grown nearly as fast. The gap between demand and supply in that specific niche is significant, and it shows in salaries. Software engineering is also projected to grow substantially. Australia's government has projected over 20% growth in software engineering roles over the coming years. When you combine projected growth with current shortages, you get a market where employers are bidding actively for talent and salaries follow. Here is something that surprises a lot of people. Some of Australia's best paying roles are not in medicine or technology at all. They're in the law, and specifically in corporate, tax, and commercial law. Senior partners at major Australian law firms can earn well into the hundreds of thousands annually, with top tiers in the largest firms pushing beyond that. General counsels, the chief legal officer inside a large corporation, are among the most consistently well-compensated executives in the country. The reason law pays so well in Australia comes down to several things. First, the legal system is complex. Australian commercial law intersects with contract law, tax law, environmental regulations, workplace relations, and international trade rules. A company operating at scale needs lawyers who understand all of these dimensions and can navigate them without mistakes. Because the consequences of legal errors can cost companies enormous sums, the premium on getting it right is high. Second, just like medicine, the training pathway for law is demanding. A law degree alone is not enough. You then complete practical legal training, seek admission, obtain a practicing certificate, and build specialized expertise over years of practice. The most highly compensated lawyers typically combine legal expertise with deep industry knowledge, whether that's in mining, finance, construction, or technology. Third, Australia's resource and infrastructure boom creates a constant demand for lawyers who specialize in these transactions. Billion-dollar mining deals, infrastructure contracts, mergers and acquisitions, all of these require sophisticated legal teams. The firms who can deliver that expertise command premium fees, and they share those fees with the people doing the work. Now let's step back and talk about the structural forces that run across all of these high-paying industries, because there are patterns here that are worth understanding clearly. The first and most consistent pattern is the skills shortage. Australia's Jobs and Skills Australia agency has noted that skill shortages are persistent across the economy. Not short-term blips, but structural gaps that the market has not been able to close quickly. When shortages persist for years, wages trend upward. Employers competing for a limited talent pool eventually have to pay more to attract and retain the people they need. The second pattern is the geography premium. Australia is a large country with significant regional disparities. Remote areas, the Pilbara in Western Australia, outback Queensland, the Northern Territory, have resources, projects, and healthcare needs, but they have far fewer people willing to live and work there. Employers fill that gap with money. Location-based premiums for working in remote Australia are real, documented, and often substantial. The third pattern is the consequence premium. The jobs that pay the most in Australia almost universally involve high stakes. A surgeon who makes an error can cost a life. A cybersecurity specialist who misses a threat can expose millions of customer records. A mining operator who makes a mistake on a piece of equipment worth millions can cause catastrophic damage. When the cost of failure is high, the value of getting it right is also high, and wages reflect that. The fourth pattern is the capital leverage effect. In industries like mining, where the value being generated is enormous relative to the number of workers, those workers' wages can be very high without significantly impacting the company's financial position. The operator of a machine generating millions of dollars in ore per week has leverage that a worker in a low-margin service business simply does not have. The fifth pattern is the cost of living adjustment. Australian salaries do not exist in a vacuum. Sydney and Melbourne are among the most expensive cities to live in the world. Housing costs, particularly, have escalated dramatically over the past 2 decades. The wages that look extraordinary by global comparison are partly a reflection of what it costs to live in Australia's major economic centres. That does not diminish the earning potential, it contextualizes it. There's one more dimension worth talking about, and it is the one that connects all of these industries together: Australia's system of industrial relations and worker protections. Australia has one of the highest minimum wages in the world. As of 2025, the national minimum wage is approximately $24.95 per hour, one of the highest baselines of any developed economy. This creates a wage floor that lifts the entire pay structure upward. Workers across almost every industry benefit from a strong baseline, and when you start from a higher floor, the ceiling tends to be higher too. Australia also has a compulsory superannuation system, a mandatory employer contribution to retirement savings on top of wages. Currently, sitting at around 11.5% of gross wages, superannuation means that what you see as an advertised salary is not the full picture. Total remuneration, when you include super, is significantly higher than the base number. This is another structural reason why Australian employment packages can be so attractive. Strong unions in industries like mining, construction, and healthcare have also historically played a role in maintaining and improving wage levels. While union membership has declined over the decades, the baseline conditions negotiated by unions over generations remain embedded in awards and enterprise agreements that still govern how many workers are paid. So, where does all of this leave you? Whether you're a student deciding what to study, a mid-career professional considering a change, or someone watching from overseas and wondering whether Australia's job market is as compelling as it sounds, here is the honest takeaway. Australia genuinely does pay certain jobs exceptionally well. The numbers are not marketing fiction or wishful thinking. The data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, from recruitment firms like Hayes and Michael Page, from the Australian Taxation Office, it all confirms that specialized workers in the right industries, in the right locations, are earning salaries that are genuinely world-class. But those salaries are not random. They follow logic. They reward scarcity. They reward consequence. They reward the willingness to work where others will not, to train for longer than most, to take on responsibility that others cannot. When you understand those underlying forces, you are not just looking at a list of high-paying jobs. You are understanding a framework for thinking about where economic value is created. The mining engineer working a fly-in, fly-out roster in Western Australia is not paid well because someone was feeling generous. They are paid well because the industry cannot function without them. because the conditions demand sacrifice, and because the value they generate is disproportionate to the number of people who can do what they do. The neurosurgeon earning $600,000 a year did not stumble into that salary. They walked a 15-year path of relentless training and accumulated a level of skill that, in Australia's healthcare system, is simply irreplaceable. The cybersecurity architect protecting a major bank's systems from adversaries is earning what they earn because the threat is real, the talent is rare, and the cost of not having them is incalculable. That is what this video has been about. Not just the numbers, but the reasons. Because once you see the reasons clearly, you can make better decisions. You can build a career strategy, not just a job search. You can look at the Australian economy and identify where value is being created and where it is likely to continue growing. Australia is a country with massive resources, a constrained workforce, an aging population, a growing technology sector, and a labor protection system that creates strong wage floors across the board. All of those conditions together make it one of the most financially rewarding places in the world to build a professional career, if you understand where to position yourself. And now you do. If you found this video useful, the single most helpful thing you can do is hit the subscribe button right now. We break down how economies work, how job markets function, and how to position yourself to build real financial independence, not through hype or shortcuts, but through understanding the actual forces at play. Every video we make is built on data and designed to give you insights that most people never stop to look for. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join a community of people who are serious about understanding the world and using that understanding to get ahead. We'll see you in the next one.